Hello and welcome to Amplify, the online film festival. We're delighted to be hosting this event tonight about the film An Impossible Project. Before I introduce our guests, I just want to say there'll be about 15 or 20 minutes Q&A between myself and the guests, and then it will be open to you to ask questions. You can either ask questions through the Eventive platform via chat, or you can use the Twitter, which is @AmplifyFilm. So hopefully we get some interesting questions. I know we're going to get interesting answers from our guests. I'm delighted to welcome Florian Doc Kaps, the man behind the whole project, Jens Meurer, the director who brought this into being, Phil Hunt, producer and distributor of the film, and Haley Reinhart, who gives an exquisite performance towards the end of the film. And I'm so excited to actually be doing this because I read about this project a couple of years ago in David Sachs' book, Revenge of the Analog, which I recommend to anybody to read because it's such a fantastic read. And that's where I first came across Doc in writing and found out about his revival of the Polaroid factory. So I want to start with Doc and ask you, what is it that drew you to that project of getting the factory up and running again?
Very honestly speaking, I don't know. It's I just have the feeling that I never could resist impossible projects or projects of my heart, and I fell in love with Polaroid photography a very long time ago. In a time when everybody was running into the digital direction, and it was clear that digital photography, most likely is gonna kill analog, and somehow this felt very wrong. So I started to research, and I started to deal with Polaroid film, and then step by step I somehow ended up in that movie. That was very surprising for me, and it's also because of Jens, who I met. So it's all a long journey that started with Polaroid film, but then it became something very different and much deeper, and I still have the feeling that this is just the first chapter of many other impossible projects. Hopefully we're gonna see.
That's a impossible project. It's a quote from Edward Land, is it, the inventor of Polaroid?
Yes, absolutely.
The only thing worth doing is something that's impossible, or something to that effect.
Yeah, man. Basically, all my most brilliant quotes and everything I said that makes sense is just copied from Edwin Land. He's an incredible guy. He has been an incredible guy. He even inspired Steve Jobs. So when he started doing things that nobody believed in, and he started to think really very innovative, and I think this is also important in these crazy times like now, that it makes sense to think out of the box, think long term, and also think about the limitations of digital. Even this Zoom now, how sexy could it be compared to us sitting in a pub together or in a big cinema?
Oh no, yeah.
Big cinema. So I'm happy be here. I'm here, but it also kills and breaks my heart that we are not sitting somewhere in a great room, especially as this film is shot on 35 millimeter, and I've seen it, how beautiful it looks when the light streams through the cinema onto the screen. So
bringing Jens here, and how did you come together, the two of you, and why did you choose to shoot on 35mm, apart from the fact it seems like you had to?
Well, I kind of had to. I was introduced to Doc, I mean, it seems like a long time ago, about 8 years ago. And it wasn't so much that I'm a total devotee of Polaroid film. I'm not a Luddite either. I produced films like Russian Ark, which was the first digital film that kind of really worked. But when introduced to Doc and the Impossible Project, I thought is just really healthy and exciting and inspiring to meet somebody, and not just Doc, also the group of people that he was working with, who were kind of going the other way. Everyone was going crazy. People were queuing outside a shop, an Apple store, for days to get their new iPhone. Can you imagine? So I met Doc, and he was somebody who was looking at it very differently. And I had no idea whether his Impossible project was going to work or not work. But I became really intrigued in following it to see and to show that there is another way of looking at things. And that was 7 years ago. So the film is finished now. And I think Doc's really been proven right. You know, there's really, it's not digital is bad, but there's real room for wondering just how much digital do we want in our lives? And so, you know, there's no way this film could have been shot on a video format. So it was clear it's going to be shot on film. Also, when I started, everyone was calling film over, it's dead. Yeah. So I just like to have my own little Impossible project and just prove that actually it's not. You can still make films on 35 millimeter. Teamed up with Ari and with Kodak, and it worked fantastically. It was a joy to work that way.
I read on IMDb that you shot on Super 35. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, but that's standard 35 millimeter material from Kodak. Yeah.
It's just quite often they use Super 35 to then blow up to 70 mil, which is what they used to do back in the 80s when they were making blow ups for the to go on road shows. But so
Bill, you're right. Of course, actually, nothing short of 70 millimeter could really do justice to Doc. But
absolutely,
there were some funding restraints. But
I didn't know that you were shooting on Super 35. You know, I would have dressed completely different when you have told me.
So do you hope to do? I mean, bringing in the Phil, you were brought into as producer on the film, and also you're going to be distributing it next year. Do you think you'll distribute 35 mil prints?
Well, so we do, you know, hope to do some physical screenings when we release, you know, estimated date March next year. Obviously, you know, we're playing everything, you know, we just have to be, you know, constantly shifting schedules around as every other distributor is at the moment. But yeah, we hope so. Yeah, for sure we hope so. Yeah,
there's still quite a few cinemas. Still quite a few cinemas in the UK that they can screen 35 mil. So
yeah, there are, and we're going to, you know, for sure take advantage of that. So yeah. As long as we're not on lockdown, you know, what I'm hoping to do is release before the studios get all of their films dumped into the cinemas next spring.
35 mil film can. Excellent.
Yeah, nice.
Just to remind you, Phil.
What's that look like again? Oh yeah.
So what was it like sustaining filming on 35 mil over such a long period of time, and then the things that are happening around the Impossible project as well, and things that were changing?
Well, it's a kind of a mindset question, which I think mirrors hopefully a little bit what was happening with Polaroid and the Impossible project and many other people working in the film. You know, you'll see Haley's performance, which is completely live and with the proper orchestra playing analog instruments. So filming on 35, it kind of sounds like something exotic now, but of course it isn't. That's what we've been doing for more than 100 years. And all it took was to say, that's what we're going to do. And there's still loads of 35 millimeter cameras. There are labs in many countries, and they're good ones. Kodak is producing very, very good 35 millimeter film. And, you know, maybe 35 isn't the typical format for documentary, but it's a very, very happy format for documentary. You know, in a way, all you have to do is just, you know, load film and roll the camera and point it at something. It's going to look great. And, you know, you're not spending all this time with digital filters and lookup tables and so on. What you see in my film is pretty much how it was filmed. And it looks good on an iPhone, and it looks really good on 35 millimeter on a cinema screen. There's not much to it. It's just, you got to want to do it. And I wanted to do it.
Been a bit of a nerd. I was looking for processing blotches, but it seemed to have been processed exquisitely. I mean, it looked fantastic.
I think there's two great key things about shooting on film. One is you don't overshoot, and you really have to think, the director, you know, and DP has to really think about what it is that they really must get out of this scene and really get to the nub of it. And I think with digital, cameras, we all overshoot now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The shooting ratios have become insane.
Yeah.
You know, got masters like Hitchcock, etc., working to 3-to-1 editing ratios, and I imagine
we didn't quite have that. I have to admit, it was more than that. But Phil is right. That working like this is so. You know, basically, we go to work and I have like 8 rolls like this that are 4 minutes for the day, which is actually quite a lot if you think about it. You know, you're never going to use all of it. And once those 8 rolls are shot, and sometimes things go wrong, you have a rollout when you don't want to. But, you know, it's par for the course, even happens on video. But basically, those 8 rolls are shot. That's it. You know, there's nothing else you can do. You can't keep rolling. It means you go down to the pub, the day's over. And that is very liberating. It's happy making, it's liberating. And, you know, we still have enough stuff to edit with.
Yeah. So did you have a sense as to when you were going to finish shooting? When you start off with that, 2013, then the grand finale that comes along is something that hasn't been anticipated.
But, you know, it's just the beginning. We have material for three more episodes, you know, coming out in the following year, right?
Yeah.
Jens, you promised me at least, you know, like Lord of the Rings, we have to beat them. 16 episodes of Impossible Projects, come on.
Impossible Project Redux.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The good thing is that really, you know, the best thing about 35mm is that Jens ran out of budget each and every year. So we had, you know, almost 7 years to continue doing Impossible Projects, and it totally shifted. You know, the time shifted the whole, you know, understanding for analog and digital, and you know, and also Haley wouldn't be, you know, we would never have met her if Jens, you know, didn't run out of budget so many times. And we can, you know, we found this hotel, and we could even change Facebook into an analog company, and had this incredible concert and recorded all this film music in a hotel. So I'm, you know, once again, it shows the incredible advantages of analog and restrictions and limits to digital. You know, I think that's great.
Yeah. So Haley, how did you get involved?
Well, I was contacted by Jens and the team. It was an
via
amazing...
the internet.
Through the internet. A carrier pigeon, I'd like to say. No, but but it was amazing. It was very close to when I would have to fly to Vienna, and I actually was learning some of these songs that are classic, and I'm surprised I didn't know a few of them, but I would learn them on the plane and arrive, and my younger sister Angela met me from Chicago, so it was this beautiful whirlwind of an experience, and it came out of nowhere, and little did, you know, Jens and Doc know that they were fulfilling a huge dream of mine as well, which was not only performing you know, these full takes on 35mm, but being able to perform with like an 80-piece orchestra under only the light of candelabras. It was just like a very, you know, stellar experience overall, and I'm still just in complete admiration over both of these gentlemen.
and you were recording direct to disc, so no second takes.
Right, and piggybacking off of what Jens said, it's a really beautiful way to challenge yourself as an artist and give it your all when you have that opportunity to do so. And it's a great way to know when to put the paintbrush down, and whatever you're going to get is going to be raw and not cookie cutter. And it was a really fun challenge to take on, I think, all of us in our own ways together.
It's a great performance. I think it's a fantastic finale. That hotel, first of all, reminded me of Stanley Kubrick in The Shining, but then it becomes much friendlier.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. It's probably haunted. Yes, yeah. I'm sure.
So are you still involved with the hotel, Doc?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are very close to opening it again. Just a few millions away.
Right, that's nothing.
But you know, I think, you know, it's so funny because every time the people see the film and we talk after the film, they are not at all interested about Polaroid and all the other boring stuff. They just say, hey, when can I check into this hotel? It's really amazing. And it was really the hotel and Haley, they saved this film and our asses in the last minute, because before that it was a really boring film. It's just this crazy guy in his white jacket walking around trying to speak English, and then Jens said, fuck, we have to do something. And then I said, okay, I can add the hotel. And then Jens said, okay, I'm looking for an amazing singer. Then that's our last chance. So it all happened. And so we have to go back there, and Haley is gonna sing at the opening party, and you are all invited. Maybe take some more weeks, because now is not the best time to open a hotel, maybe. But,
no, not really.
But compared to saving Polaroid, I think it's a walk in the park.
So Jens, you did a little bit of direction, and then you did nothing for about 10 years, and in terms of direction, but you did a lot of production. But now you've got 2 films that you've completed in the last couple of years.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, my day job is kind of producing feature films, and I actually had a 20-year break. But Doc and Haley, and with the support of Phil, this is kind of my comeback, for better or for worse. And I have a new film that is already nearly finished. It's called Seaside Special, and it's British. It's about the last End of the Pier Theatre in a town called Cromer in North Norfolk.
Oh yes, yeah.
Not just nearly swept away by the turmoil of the North Sea, which used to be called the German Sea, of course, but also what's going on in your country at the moment. So it's a very European love affair, that film. Yeah. But that's a little bit down the line. Impossible is the film that is kind of out, but not out now because of the pandemic. So we're very happy that, I don't know how and how many people will see it through Amplify, but we're happy to be here.
Yeah. So what do you think it is about analog? People are talking about different aspects. People are talking about the authenticity. People are saying it's coming back to actually owning things. The whole transition to digital, we didn't actually own anything anymore. We just had it stored somewhere on a hard drive, and it was easy to delete. But young generations have become fascinated by the idea of actually having something.
Well, you can ask all of us, and maybe we should go through it quickly. I think the idea that humans are analog, so we kind of thrive of having something tangible, things that we can touch and that touch us. And I think the absence of, if you want to call it analog or real things, is kind of Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. It's stuff that doesn't really connect to our lives anymore. And analog is a shorthand or a shortcut to using things that make us more aware, more conscious and happier, I think. That doesn't mean that digital is bad. It's a question of balance. And I really think both is possible. And that's what the film is showing. And, like Haley's performance, recorded live at that moment and cut onto disc, which is also the soundtrack of the film, you can see it on YouTube. That's fine. I don't know. Over to you, Haley.
Yeah. I really think that I might very well be one of the last generations to have grown up without a cell phone until I was towards the end of high school. And I feel really lucky for that. And I think that I've also been lucky enough to live in a household with really musical parents, and we would play vinyl all the time. And I now own a bunch of, cameras from Polaroid to, 35 millimeter. And I'm obsessed with all things kind of classic. And I honestly feel like it's our jobs. And I've always felt this kind of inner duty to keep this alive, to keep this golden era, if you want to call it, alive, whether it be music and just that analog, tangible flavor of life that we're seeing slip away. But, this is why we're doing this. You guys we're keeping it alive for sure.
Phil?
I think Doc,
negatives.
I've got all my negatives over there. I got there's my vinyl player over there, just above there. All my vinyl in that box over there. I've got my boogie box around the corner. I'm going to grab it in a second. But I think it's what Doc says. When he talks about you can smell it, you know, you can smell vinyl, you can touch it. And for me, you know, I'm in my 50s, and I, you know, was really big into, and I still am really big into music, and kind of, you know, born, you know, in the late 60s. And so for me, I need to touch stuff. I need to see it. I need to, you know, like, you know, back when I was a kid, I'd get the gatefold sleeve out, you know, with all the music and the lyrics on, and I'd shout, you know, while Joe Strummer was shouting his, you know, lyrics on Clash, I'd be shouting it out. And, you know, I'd used to be one of those, you know, real annoying people out in the street with my boogie box, you know. And I need stuff, like physical stuff. It's a bit like what's going on right now with COVID. Like, we are starving of seeing each other and being out and getting that elation and being in groups doing stuff together, whether it's a music festival or going to listen to music, or just chatting to people and hugging people, you know. Like, we're not getting any of that now. And that's why I think, you know, digital's like great because we can do things like this and send 1 billion emails, but for me, analog any day.
Yeah, I hesitate to ask Doc, but I think we'll round up with you, Doc, and let you have the final say on things.
No,
but in
you
the meantime,
ask me, because, you know, if we want to finish this within the next minutes, you should not ask me.
Well, that's what I thought. But I will ask you. You can round up. But we've got a question at the moment. So from Matthew, who's a photographer. He says, will photographers ever have access again to Kodachrome film or anything like it?
To Kodachrome film?
Yep.
I honestly don't know. You know, I try to concentrate just one film factory. You know, there have been many calls, you know, to also rescue the Kodak film factory or the Fuji film factory. It became a little big, a lot of burdens. So I cannot answer that, unfortunately. I hope so. I've heard, you know, what I know is that they are not doing bad. You know, it's somehow after going down for a long time, I think their factories and what they're doing, it's pretty stable, and they even started to introduce new film formats. So I'm always a positive guy. So I say yes, definitely, everything will come back.
Well, I'm a more positive guy on that. I think something important that I think is also important about the message of my film. This is not a retro film. This is not a film about bearded record collectors. This is a film about what's possible tomorrow. And if enough of us realize we actually want to hang on to these things and use film, use a typewriter, write a letter, and so on, it's really all there. You just have to make a choice and use it, and go out there and buy some film stock and use it. And, you know, most people that I meet who do this really enjoy it. And it doesn't mean, you know, I'll show you something really incredible. Here's my smartphone. It runs my life just like everyone else. But here's also my typewriter. It's really easy to put the two together. Yeah. And I think this is a way of the future. This is not a retro, oh, you know, it's all going to disappear. It's not disappearing. It's up to us to keep it going and to use it. And it's not difficult. It's easy. Just fall in love with it again. It's fun.
I noticed your cat is happily wagging its tail in the background. Oh, we got some Kodachrome film here.
Yeah, there you go. It's fresh from the fridge.
Yeah, well, there you are. It can be got.
Yay, yay. We came back earlier than I expected.
We've got a general question here, which is, if people want to talk about a favorite analog item which is now digital, do you have a favorite analog item which is now digital?
Car sharing. Well, I never had a driver, but you know, I now have car sharing.
That's through digital.
What's Phil got there?
Oh, it's his boombox. Thanks. Well, I mean, I've heard cassettes are making a big comeback as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's on top of my list. Cassettes, but you know, not the toy ones that they are selling in the Urban Outfitters, but you know, the really good ones, because back in the days, the cassette had an incredible quality. You know, Walkman Professional is one of the best, you know, recording machines ever invented. So it's also about the quality. You know, the comeback of analog in a digital world always should be connected with real, you know, 5-dimensional quality. This is important. But I agree, cassette is definitely, but many other things. We have a long list of things, you know, we have to do.
This is my daughter's camera, which she got from my mom. It's got my mom's name engraved here. It's a 35mm camera, a really small one from the 70s that you can kind of fold up. It works without a battery and it takes really great pictures. It's beautiful. And no problem to use, you know, just go down to the Photoshop next door.
Hey, I think we should do a show and tell, you know, some other time. Get everyone. Maybe we'll do that on the release, you know, when we release it in the UK.
Yeah.
Do that.
I just before we started this, I just wound up the wall clock that was given to my grandparents as a wedding present in the 1920s. So it's a Bavarian wall clock, which I've, you know, it makes a beautiful sound, that clockwork thing. You don't need to put any batteries in it, as Jens says. You just wind it up once a week and it tells me the time. It's great. So Haley, any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of vinyl. I have a lot of things in my house that reflect exactly what, you know, this entire documentary is about. I'm so happy to be a part of something that's going to further this message to the younger generation just as much as it's going to, you know, just bring back this awareness and attention to adults as well. But I'd like to spread this message specifically on my part to the younger audience that that may be really interested in it and I don't know, maybe not think that they're cool enough or like, you know, maybe they just need that push to say, hey, like this is where it's at. Like all you need to do go is, like Jan said, go to the store, check out. I just went to an old camera store because I want to get a new 35mm, a new old 35, and it's so great, like going to a shop and being able to connect with that person and just look at that whole wall full of these you know, cameras and film. It's such an experience. It brings me so much joy to go get my film developed now, and I'm currently like on a hideout in Arizona, and I made sure to bring my 35mm, my disposable, and my Polaroid, and it's just we're creating memories already, but having these tangible things to walk away with almost immediately, because they can now send it digitally, so it's that marriage between the two is it's incredible.
I think that was a perfect summary. I think that was genius. That was beautifully put. I just want to wind up at this point, thank Haley and thank Phil and Jens and Doc. Doc especially for actually starting this entire journey. Without you, we wouldn't have seen this film today or had this conversation. Just encourage everybody who's been watching this evening to let everybody know about the AMPLIFY Festival and all the great films that are on there. And don't forget the handle @AMPLIFY Film. And thank you all so much for taking part tonight. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.